Now let's get analysis. We're now joined via Zoom by Professor Daniel Meyer from the School of Public Management, Governance and Public Policy at the University of Johannesburg. Prof, good afternoon to you. Not a good time to be speaking ahead of the budget speech, but the budget does come at a time, where millions of South Africans are cash-strapped, unemployed, experiencing high costs of living. The minister will once again be expected to do some sort of a balancing act of sorts. What can we expect tomorrow?
Yes, thank you and good afternoon. Look, the general public is under huge pressure, as you say, in terms of food prices, electricity prices, fuel prices, rising costs for everything. And we will be affected again by the budget speech, each one of us. Even if it's only your personal taxes, your corporate taxes, the taxes on fuel will be there again. I hope that there will be an allocation for capital spending. We need our infrastructure to grow. Specifically, infrastructure needs to be expanded and the maintenance of that. And obviously, we're looking forward after the president's speech, the SONA address, on what could be done on the incentives for solar installations by businesses and maybe also by households. But there's a lot of the budget that affects us all, and we can discuss maybe what's going to happen with taxes and so on, but we are really affected, and everybody needs to look at what's going to happen in the budget.
You touched a little bit about electricity, from the energy crisis perspective. And with the new ministry, of course, that announcement that came through of a ministry that will be appointed to look at electricity, can we really quantify, the impact of load shedding? And how is this likely then to be addressed by the minister tomorrow?
The impact has been like, let's say, a ceiling on our growth in the country. It's been huge. It's like you have a Porsche or a Ferrari car that you buy, but the speed limit is only 60%. So that the economy is ready to grow. The private sector is there. They want growth and they want to support the country for growth. But we've got this limiting factor. So it is a huge impact. I cannot tell you just out of hand how much and how percentage-wise, but let's say at least 2% per year that has been keeping us back over the last 2 or 3 years. And we need above 3 to 5% GDP growth every year. And we just hope that we can have solutions. And the solution is not so difficult. The private sector must come into the game for provision of electricity. That's quite easy, and they are ready to provide. Eskom cannot provide anymore. We've seen it from 2007 already, so they cannot provide anymore. Like all of these state-owned enterprises, they have now failed us as a country, and it's affecting all of us with low growth. At the moment, we've got this low growth environment with rising interest rates. That doesn't make much sense. We cannot have that situation. And it's all or mostly as a result of the electricity supply, but also the war in Ukraine. So we're hoping that the minister can support also private sector involvement in electricity supply, but also allow businesses and households to give back into the grid. And that is possible. It's not difficult. It's happening in other countries. And some of our provinces like the Western Cape are already looking at it, and we're waiting for the tariff to be proclaimed. How much is to be paid per kilowatt that's fed back into the grid by private households and businesses.
It then becomes very important, for the minister to focus his budget really on economic growth and, revenue revisions. How would you like that to look like?
You are 100% correct. Too large amounts of our budgets goes into debt repayments, and that is about 10% of our total budget goes into that. 15% of our budget goes into government salaries, and 17% goes into our social welfare spending. And none of those budget allocations are really economic developmental drivers. And the main driver for economic development currently in South Africa must be our infrastructure development drive. And within the President's office, you find Infrastructure South Africa, They've got huge projects that's currently being planned. So they need to be supported, and we need to have a clear capacity for water provision, because that's the next water shedding is coming soon if we don't plan for it, like the load shedding. We need to have our roads in 100% functional state. You will see after all of these rains, we've got so many potholes. That makes also economic development very difficult. If you don't have water, roads, and electricity, that makes things very difficult. So I would say the real focus should be on huge infrastructure development and maintenance projects.
And then, of course, a lot of talk around this. Are we likely then to get some form of clarity regarding the basic income grant, following the extension of the SRD grant not too long ago, particularly if you look at the concerns that economists had when the SRD grant was initiated initially, which would make it very difficult for government to let go of?
The basic income grant will not be in this year's budget in terms of what I have read in the newspapers and the research that we've done. We are not ready for it yet. South Africa's got already an expansive social welfare system through the grants that we've got already, the free electricity, free water, free housing, free education, with all of the grants that we've got. So currently, we don't have the financial backing to have a basic income grant. If you look at the poverty lines, the lower lines is around 600 Rand a month per person, up to 1,355, the upper band of the poverty line. If we take, let's say, the upper band of the poverty, the 1,355, multiply by half of the population, which is below the income grant, we're looking at 480 billion Rand per year. And that is just not sustainable at this point of time. It could be financed by a 2 to 3% VAT increase, but that is not going to be accepted by the voters and the citizens of the country. So the money is the problem. Where is the funding going to come from? The just below 500 billion out of a budget of about 1.5 billion. So that is not sustainable at this point of time. More negotiations, more talks is needed, maybe for the future, but currently it's not going to happen.
And then, of course, there's that question of the wage bill. But Prof, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time and your analysis here on the show. Professor Daniel Meyer from the School of Business Management, there, Governance and Public Policy. Of course, he's from the University of Johannesburg. Well,